Hey there, listeners! Buckle up for a thrilling adventure that will whisk you away into a magical forest full of surprises, danger, and a sprinkle of sweetness. Imagine a world where houses are made of candy, but not everything is as yummy as it seems. Today, we're diving into the incredible story of two brave siblings, Hansel and Gretel, who face challenges that will test their courage and cleverness. So grab a cozy blanket, get comfy, and let's step into this enchanting tale together. Once upon a time, in a small, quiet village, surrounded by towering trees and endless woods, lived two young siblings named Hansel and Gretel. They were a brother and sister duo who loved to play and explore, but life wasn't always easy for them. Their family was very poor, and their parents struggled every single day to put food on the table. There were nights when their bellies growled with hunger, and their tiny home felt cold and empty. Their father worked hard chopping wood, earning just a few dollars a week, while their mother did her best to mend clothes for a couple of dollars here and there. But it was never enough. The family often went to bed with empty stomachs, dreaming of better days. One sunny morning when the birds were chirping and the wind whispered through the leaves, their parents decided it was time to head into the deep forest to search for anything that could help them survive. They planned to gather firewood to sell for a few dollars and hoped to find wild berries or nuts to eat. Before leaving, their mother knelt down, looked into Hansel and Gretel's wide, curious eyes, and gave them a serious warning. "We're going to split up to cover more ground," she said gently but firmly. "Your father and I will collect wood on one side of the forest, and I want you two to stay on the other side, picking any fruit or berries you can find. But listen carefully, don't talk to strangers. If you see anyone you don't know, stay away and come back to us as fast as you can. The forest can be a tricky place, and not everyone is kind." Hansel and Gretel nodded, promising to be careful, their little hearts pounding with both excitement and a tiny bit of fear. As the family parted ways at the edge of the forest, Hansel, who was always thinking ahead, came up with a smart idea. He had a small piece of stale bread in his pocket, the last bit from their meager breakfast. "Gretel," he whispered to his sister as they walked deeper into the woods, "I'm going to drop crumbs of this bread along the path. If we get lost, we can follow them back home. It's like leaving a map behind us." Gretel smiled at her brother's cleverness, feeling a little safer knowing they had a plan. Step by step, Hansel broke off tiny pieces of bread and let them fall to the ground, marking their trail as they searched for fruit among the bushes and trees. The forest was vast and mysterious, with tall trees that seemed to touch the sky and shadows that danced in the corners of their vision. The siblings wandered for hours, their small hands brushing against thorny bushes and their eyes scanning for anything edible. But luck wasn't on their side. They didn't find a single berry or fruit, and as the sun began to dip below the horizon, the forest grew darker and colder. Gretel's voice trembled as she tugged at Hansel's sleeve. "We haven't found anything to eat, and it's getting so dark. I'm scared. Can we go home now?" Hansel, trying to stay strong for his sister, nodded confidently. "Don't worry, Gretel. We'll follow the breadcrumbs I drop. They'll lead us right back to Mom and Dad." But when they turned around to retrace their steps, their hearts sank. The breadcrumbs were gone. Not a single crumb remained on the forest floor. Hungry crows, with their shiny black feathers and sharp beaks, had swooped down and gobbled up every last piece. Hansel and Gretel were lost, surrounded by the eerie silence of the woods, with no idea which way to go. The trees seemed to close in around them, and every rustle of leaves made them jump. They held hands tightly, their small figures trembling in the chilly night air, wondering if they would ever see their parents again. Just when they thought all hope was lost, something magical appeared in the distance. Through the trees, they spotted a faint glow, and as they crept closer, their eyes widened in amazement. There, in a small clearing, stood a house unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't made of wood or stone, it was made entirely of candy. The walls were layers of colorful cake, the windows shimmered with sugary cream, and the roof was a giant slab of chocolate, glistening under the moonlight. The sweet smell of frosting and caramel wafted through the air, making their empty stomachs growl louder than ever. Hansel and Gretel couldn't believe their luck. "Is this real?" Gretel whispered, her mouth watering. Hansel grinned. "Let's find out!" Without a second thought, driven by hunger, they ran to the house, broke off a piece of the cake wall, and stuffed it into their mouths. It was the sweetest, most delicious thing they had ever tasted. But their moment of joy didn't last long. The door of the candy house creaked open, and out stepped an old woman with a crooked smile. Her face was wrinkled like crumpled paper, and her eyes glinted with something unsettling. "Oh, my dears," she said in a sugary voice, "you must be so hungry. Why don't you come inside? I have plenty more treats for you." Hansel and Gretel hesitated for a moment, remembering their mother's warning about strangers. But their hunger was so strong, and the old woman seemed kind enough, so they followed her into the house, their mouths still sticky with candy. Inside, however, the house was nothing like the outside. The air felt heavy and cold, and the walls were dark and damp, not sweet at all. A strange smell lingered, and the flickering light of a fire cast creepy shadows on the walls. Before they could run, the old woman's fake smile vanished, revealing her true nature. She wasn't a kind grandmother, she was a wicked witch. With a cackle, she grabbed Hansel and locked him in a rusty cage in the corner of the room. Gretel screamed, but the witch turned to her with a sinister grin. "Don't cry, little girl," she hissed. "You're going to help me. Cook lots of food for your brother. Make him nice and fat because soon I'm going to eat him for dinner." Gretel's heart raced with terror, but she knew she had to stay calm. She had to save her brother, no matter what. Days passed, and Gretel was forced to cook endless meals for Hansel, following the witch's cruel orders. The witch would check on Hansel every day, poking at him through the bars of the cage to see if he was getting fatter. But Hansel, just as clever as his sister, tricked her. Whenever the witch asked him to stick out his finger to test his size, he held out a thin chicken bone instead. The witch, whose eyesight was poor, grumbled in frustration. "Why aren't you getting fat?" she muttered, growing angrier by the day. Meanwhile, Gretel watched and waited, her mind racing for a way to escape this nightmare. Finally, Gretel came up with a daring plan. One day, as she was preparing another meal, she turned to the witch with a fake look of confusion. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice trembling just enough to seem real, "but I don't know how to light the oven properly. The fire keeps going out. Could you show me how to do it?" The witch, annoyed but impatient, stomped over to the big black oven. "Fine, you foolish child," she snapped. "Watch closely." She bent down and stuck her head inside the oven to check the fire. This was Gretel's chance. With all her strength, she ran forward and pushed the witch as hard as she could. The old hag tumbled into the oven with a shriek, and Gretel quickly slammed the door shut, trapping her inside. The witch's angry cries faded as the heat did its work, and Gretel knew they were finally safe. With her heart pounding, Gretel rushed to the cage and freed Hansel. "We did it!" Hansel cheered, hugging his sister tightly. But they knew they couldn't stay in the creepy candy house a moment longer. Hand in hand, they ran out the door, leaving the witch and her sugary trap behind. The forest was still dark and confusing, but their determination to find their parents kept them going. They walked for what felt like forever, their feet aching and their stomachs still rumbling, until at last, they heard familiar voices calling their names. Hansel! Gretel! It was their mother and father who had been searching the forest day and night, worried sick about their children. Tears streamed down their faces as they ran to each other, wrapping their arms around one another in the tightest hug. "We thought we lost you forever," their mother sobbed, kissing their foreheads. Their father, usually so quiet, couldn't stop smiling. "You're safe now." "That's all that matters," he said, his voice full of relief. Together, the family made their way back to their little village, vowing never to let anything tear them apart again. Hansel and Gretel learned some big lessons from their adventure. They realized how important it was to listen to their parents and to be careful about trusting strangers, no matter how nice they might seem at first. They also discovered just how brave and smart they could be when they worked together. From that day on, they stayed close to their family, helping out in any way they could, whether it was gathering wood for a few dollars or mending clothes for a couple of bucks. Their little home might not have been filled with riches, but it was overflowing with love and trust. And so, the story of Hansel and Gretel reminds us all to be cautious in a world full of surprises, to stick by the people we love, and to use our wits when things get tough. The candy house may have looked sweet, but it hid a bitter danger. But thanks to their courage and quick thinking, Hansel and Gretel turned a scary situation into a happy ending. As the sun set over their village, casting a warm golden glow on their tiny house, the siblings knew they would never forget their wild journey through the forest. And neither will we. So, next time you're tempted by something that seems too good to be true, remember Hansel and Gretel's story. Think twice, stay sharp, and always keep your loved ones close. Sweet dreams, everyone. And may your own adventures always lead you safely back home.